One of President Reagan's cabinet members, Bill Bennett, is comparing President-elect Trump's actions with Carrier today to those of his former boss, who took on the air traffic controllers after they went on strike illegally. President Reagan told the air traffic controllers in no uncertain terms, "You better come back to work or else."
The union demands are 17 times what had been agreed to, $681 million. This would impose a tax burden on their fellow citizens which is unacceptable. It is for this reason that I must tell those who fail to report for duty this morning they are in violation of the law, and if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated.
And he made good on that threat, changing the strike history that we would see of these kinds of unions for years to come. Bill Bennett is a Fox News contributor and former education secretary under President Reagan. Bill, great to see you. First, let's talk about Donald Trump's speech tonight. What a speech it was. Optimistic, you know, at times strong, at times a little threatening of those who would cross America in his view, not dissimilar from what we heard from Ronald Reagan.
That's right, but it was vintage Trump. Very funny, I think, when he was on the text, reading from the text, and then when he departed. I preferred the departures from the text, actually. Would be just as happy if he didn't return to the text. But both parts were good. Very strong, and he's the same guy. I think that's the thing. And my comparison with Reagan is that when Reagan did the air traffic controllers firing, everybody said, oh my gosh, you know, this guy is serious. Remember, Ronald Reagan was called an amiable dunce by Clark Clifford, part of the Republican establishment. People didn't know what we were getting, or at least Washington didn't know what it was getting. The people knew. And when he got in and did this, people said, my gosh, this guy is serious. He means business. That's what Trump did in Indiana with the Carrier thing. Two things. He showed that he meant what he said what he meant. And second, he showed that he remembered what he's promised during a political campaign. You know how cynical people are about American politics? Here's a guy who said something, before he's even president, he acts on it. American people like that, and I did too.
What do you make of, you know, obviously he did not keep the promise to go after Hillary and put her in jail, and he got some heat for reversing himself on that promise, and a couple of others last week. This one actually leads to real American employment and jobs kept here, which may be more important to the American people, but how do you square those two?
Well, both are consistent with Christmas, I would argue, and before Christmas. You know, the Hillary thing, that can still be covered by other people if it needs to be, if an investigation is warranted. I don't think people are worried about that. She's out of the picture. The Clintons are done. She's out of the picture. But this was a reminder that the guy meant what he said, and he means business. And now we'll see what else. But the other thing I mentioned was about the cabinet, because people have been saying, you know, the never-Trumpers with whom I was arguing, a lot of my old friends, said two things they were sure of. One, he wouldn't be elected because Hillary would bury him. Well, that was wrong. The second thing is he's no conservative. This cabinet, these picks so far are not the most conservative by a Republican president since Reagan. They're the most conservative, including Reagan. I was there. I sat around that table. I knew who those folks were. Look at this lineup. I mean, you have Price. You have Jeff Sessions. You have Flynn. You have Betsy DeVos in education. And now Mad Dog Mattis. By the way, it's nice to have a general named Mad Dog, I think. I wish General Keane hadn't told. Well, I wish General Keane hadn't said he meant it for his own troops. I'd like the other side to think he meant it for them. But I imagine he can be pretty tough there. The warrior monk, they call him, because he reads books. How about that? Generals read books.
Yeah. Yep. Well, what do you think about the never-Trumpers? Do you think they're coming around now? And I feel like a lot of these Republicans who oppose Donald Trump are suddenly looking around and saying, this is actually great. We control the House. We control the Senate. We've got a Republican president in the White House who's saying all the things that we've believed in, maybe not the trade stuff, but apart from that, he's saying a lot of things. I mean, that speech tonight was a speech 80% of which, 85% of which most Republicans have been dreaming about for at least 8 years.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I haven't heard from them. I'm still lonely for lunch, but that's okay. Maybe you'll come and you and I can have lunch. But I do notice that some of them are trying to get on the transition team, and they're looking for positions in the White House. And I've talked to a couple of people who said they were on transition. I said, did you vote for Trump? No. Did you support him? No. I said, well, I'm going to turn you in. I don't think you should be on the transition team. But in any case, I haven't heard people saying, gee, you were right and we were wrong. I haven't heard a whole lot of that. But you got to be impressed with these picks. If you're a conservative, you have to be very pleased. Administration is personnel. I mean, I ran 3 federal agencies. Administration is personnel. And when you hire conservatives, that means your government and your policy will be conservative.
Okay, before I let you go quickly, what do you think? Who do you like for Secretary of State? Who you hope he picks? And he mentioned, we're going to get to this in a minute, possibly Sarah Palin for the head of the VA, who is a controversial figure for at least half the country. What do you think of those 2 positions?
Well, I'm pretty loyal to Fox, so I'd like to see my old friend Pete Hegseth get that VA position.
He's going to be on tonight. He's coming on.
Well, good. You tell him I'm supporting him. But in terms of Secretary of State, a name that's not on the list, and I don't know why, and that's John Kyle. I think John Kyle is one of the most capable people ever to serve in the U.S. Senate and knows foreign policy. But it's a good list.
Stick to the list, Bill.
Yeah, okay. I'll stick to the list and I'll go for Giuliani. I know, look, I have trouble with the Romney thing. I just thought he was so far out of the realm of fairness in terms of what he said. So he was so personal, so nasty, so uncalled for by Mitt Romney, supposedly a gentleman. So I'd be for Giuliani. But if Donald Trump will forgive him and say, fine, I'll follow the example of my leader.
Bill, great to see you.
Thank you.